SLT Mobitel, the connection. SLT Mobitel, the connection.
ලෙන්ගතුකම වැඩි කරගන්න ලව්ජු රුපියල් 50ට අඩු කළා.
මාමේ එන්න අපිට එකක් බොමු.
In your headlines tonight, all in good time, the government tells the opposition that debates on Presidential Commission reports expected next week. Doing their bidding, State Minister calls UNHRC report a third-party hatchet job.
So we can clearly see this is somebody else's script. So we flatly refuse that.
Changing the game, Sri Lanka reports new UK virus strain in 4 districts.
This new variant, we have found them in Colombo, Avisaville, Birgama and Vavuniya.
Economic optimism. Central Bank Governor says all is not doom and gloom.
Very clear signs of the domestic industrial investment picking up, low tax base, low interest rate environment, and also forward-looking business confidence indices.
All this and much more coming up tonight on First at 9, this Friday, the 12th of February 2021.
Buy a 2-litre Coke and get a glass free.
ඇල්කොහොල් අඩංගු hand sanitizer භාවිත කරන්න. ලෙඩ රෝග ඇති කරන විෂ බීජවලට එරෙහිව සටන් කරන්න. හඳුන්වා දීමේ මිල රුපියල් 350යි.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Welcome to the news. In your top stories, in response to continued questions over the submission of the 2 Presidential Commission reports in Parliament, Leader of the House, Minister Dinesh Gunawardena, states that government will do so as soon as possible in expectation of debates next week. Meanwhile, Justice Minister Ali Sabri, in response to a question over the existence of personal laws in Sri Lanka, stated that with numerous such laws and practices, all such laws will need to be abolished to make way for a single legal system for all communities and not just the Muslim laws.
ජනාධිපතිවරයාට ප්‍රධාන ජනාධිපති විමර්ශන කමිෂන් වාර්තා දෙකක් බාර දීලා තිබෙනවා. එකක් දේශපාලන පරිගැනීම් පිළිබඳ ජනාධිපති විමර්ශන කොමිෂන් වාර්තාව. දැන් පුවත්පත්වල සඳහන් වී තිබෙනවා ඒ වාර්තාවේ මාගේ නමද සඳහන් වී තිබෙන බව. ඒතකොට ඒ නිසා අතිශය වැදගත් එම දේශපාලන පරිගැනීම් පිළිබඳව කොමිෂන් සභා වාර්තාව මේ පාර්ලිමේන්තුවට ඉදිරිපත් කරන්න. ඒ වගේ දෙවෙනි වාර්තාව පාස්කු ප්‍රහාරය. සමහර පුවත්පත්වල ඒවා කොටස් පළ වෙනවා. මේ වග උත්තරකරුවන් කවුද කියලා සඳහන් වෙනවා. ඒතකොට මට දැනගන්න කැමතියි සභාවත් ජනාධිපතිවරයා සතුව තිබෙන වාර්තාව පත්තරවල යනවා. හැබැයි පාර්ලිමේන්තුවට දෙන්නේ නැහැ. මේ වාර්තා දෙක ගරු කතානායක මේ පාර්ලිමේන්තුවට ඉදිරිපත් කරා.
හරි.
පක්ෂ නායක රැස්වීමේදී ගරු කතානායකතුමා අපි යම් දල එකඟතාවයකට ඇවිල්ලා තිබෙනවා ලබන සතිය විවාදයක් කරමුත් කියලා.
සභානායකතුමා එකඟ වෙලා තියෙන්නේ.
ඒ සඳහා මේ සතිය අපි බලාගෙන
නැවත කතා කරන එකේ තීරණයක් නැහැ.
ඉදිරිපත් කරයි කියලා.
ගරු කතානායකතුමනි, ජනාධිපති කොමිෂන් සභා වාර්තාවල් ගැන අපි මීට කලිනුත් පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ මේ ගැන ප්‍රකාශයක් කරා රජය වෙනුවෙන්. ඒ වගේම ගරු කතානායකතුමාට ඒ පිළිබඳ දන්වලා ලැබුණු විගස අපි පාර්ලිමේන්තුවට ඉදිරිපත් කරන බවත් පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ විවාදයකට රජය ඒක ලබා දෙන බවත් ප්‍රකාශ කරා. ඒ නිසා ගරු මන්ත්‍රීතුමා ගැන හෝ කාගේ හරි ගැන පත්තරවල හෝ ජනමාධ්‍යයේ හෝ ලෝක ප්‍රවෘත්තිවල පිටරටවල ඉන්න විවිධ කුමන්ත්‍රණකාරී බලවේගයන් විසින් පළ කරනවා නම් මම ඒවා ගැන මගේ අදහස් කියන්න යන්න. ඔබතුමා දන්නවා මේ වගේ කොටස් ඉන්නවා. නමුත් අනුර කුමාර දිසානායක මැතිතුමා ඊට වඩා ජ්‍යෙෂ්ඨ කෙනෙක්. ඔබට ඔරොත්තු දෙන්න පුළුවන්.
Meanwhile, Minister of Justice Ali Sabri, responding to a question posed by OPPP MP Venerable Athuraliye Ratanathera on the existence of personal laws in Sri Lanka, stated that if what is required is a single legal system for all communities, then abolishing only Muslim laws would not be the right path to take.
තවදුරටත් ඔහු විමසලා තිබුණා ලංකාවේ පුද්ගලික නීතීන් ක්‍රියාත්මක වන බවට මම දන්නවද කියලා. ලංකාවේ පුද්ගලික නීතීන් රාශියක් ක්‍රියාත්මක වන. උදාහරණ වශයෙන් උඩරට විවාහ දික්කසාද නීතිය ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙනවා. උඩරට අනුප්‍රාප්ත නීතිය ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙනවා. යාපනය විවාහ අයිතිවාසිකම් අනුප්‍රාප්තිය නීතිය ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙනවා. තේසවලාමේ නීතිය ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙනවා. මුස්ලිම් විවාහ හා දික්කසාද පනත ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙනවා. මුස්ලිම් අනුප්‍රාප්තික නීතිය ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙනවා. බෞද්ධ විහාර හා ගම් දේවාලගම් පනත ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙනවා. හින්දු සංස්කෘතික පනත ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙනවා. මුස්ලිම් වකුෆ් පනත ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙනවා. චර්ච් ඔෆ් සිලෝන් පනත ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙනවා. ඉදිරියට එය වෙනස් කොට පොදුවේ එක රටක් එක නීතියක් යටතේ සියලුම දෙනාට මේක නීතිය ක්‍රියාත්මක විය යුතු නම් එය මුස්ලිම් නීතිය පමණක් අහෝසි කිරීමෙන් කරන්නට බෑ. සියලුම පුද්ගලික නීතිය එම්නම් අහෝසි කරලා දාන්න. මේක සටන් පාඨයක් කරගෙන ටැග් ලයින් එකක් බවට පත් කරගෙන වොයිස් කට් දෙදී ජාතීන් අතර විරසකත්වය ඇති කිරීම සඳහා කටයුතු කිරීම සුදුසු නොයි කියන එකයි කරු කතානායකතුමනි මම ප්‍රකාශ කර සිටින්නේ.
Pay just 500,000 rupees to reserve your unit today. Mulberry Residence.
State Minister of Urban Development, Coast Conservation, Waste Disposal and Community Cleanliness, Dr. Nalaka Godaheva, is of the view that the conclusions in the report tabled by UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Michelle Bachelet, have been collated at a time when travel inhibitions under lockdown were a stumbling block to the carrying out of proper investigations. Now, the State Minister also labelled the report as one that has been compiled at the behest of a third party by the UN Human Rights Commission.
The Human Rights Commissioner's report this time is one of the most biased statements we have seen so far. She's talking mostly about what has happened in the country over the last 1 year. The questionable thing is, how did she know about all these things at a time the entire country was fighting on a corona battle? People couldn't travel. So without traveling, without doing proper investigations, without finding right facts, how can she write a detailed report like this, accusing about human rights violation in this country? So we can clearly see this is somebody else's script. So we flatly refuse that. This is kind of an insult to this country. So much interference into our internal matters. We outright reject these things. Human Rights Council alone can't have any impact on Sri Lanka, because the only party who can impose some conditions on Sri Lanka is the Security Council of the United Nations. Security Council has our friends. They will never allow something like this to go through. Inside Human Rights Council, where there are 47 countries, we also have a responsibility to educate those countries. So it is the responsibility of our foreign ministry and the ambassadors and all those people who are involved in this to submit the right facts and educate those countries so that they will do justice. So government is taking every necessary precaution that is required to make sure no adverse resolution is passed at the Human Rights Council this time.
Defence Secretary General Kamal Gunaratne says that the task force appointed to survey archaeological sites in the east plan to complete restoration activities of the Digavapiya Stupa within 3 years with the contribution of the Sri Lanka Army and the Civil Defence Force personnel. The Defence Secretary made these comments during the unveiling of a special fund set up to seek public donations to the cause.
A presidential task force to conduct a comprehensive survey of archaeological sites in the east and to take measures to preserve them was appointed last year by President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and headed by Defence Secretary retired General Kamal Gunaratne. Accordingly, the restoration of the Digavapi Stupa was selected as the first project by the task force. With that, the inauguration ceremony of the Digavapi Aruna Fund to collect funds for the restoration of the stupa was worked off today under the patronage of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa at the Subodhi Vihara in Colombo. During the event, several parties, including tri-forces and police personnel, donated towards the fund. Furthermore, the head of state also unveiled the official website for the project as well. Addressing the event, Defence Secretary retired General Kamal Gunaratne says that the task force plans to complete the restoration of the stupa within 3 years.
යුද හමුදාවෙත් ඒ වගේම සිවිල් ආරක්ෂක බලකායේ දායකත්වය අපි ලබා ගන්නවා ශ්‍රම දායකත්වයේ විදියට. ඒ වගේම අපි දීඝවාපී චෛත්‍ය රාජායනයන් නැවත සුරක්ෂිත කරලා සංරක්ෂණය කරන්න අපි රජයේ මුදල් බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්නේ නැහැ. අපි ඒ සඳහා අපේ රටේ සියලුම බෞද්ධ ජනතාවගේ මුල්‍යමය උපකාර අපි බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා. අපි අවුරුදු 3ක් ඇතුළත මේ කාර්යය නිම කිරීමට අපේ මහානායක හාමුදුරුවනේ අපි උත්සාහ කරනවා.
Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa says that it is vital that schools provide adequate information about opportunities offered by the country's technical and vocational education colleges to their advanced level students as an alternative. Addressing the opening ceremony of the new Anamadua Technical College today, the Premier stated that Sri Lanka can no longer be considered simply a supplier of housemaids to the rest of the world and should instead be renowned for its highly skilled workers.
The Yanamaduwa Technical College, which was constructed at a cost of 420 million rupees at a new location, was declared open yesterday by Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa.
අද කාර්මික විද්‍යාලයට විශාල ඉල්ලුමක් තියෙනවා. වෘත්තීය පුහුණුවට විශාල ඉල්ලුමක් තියෙනවා. මොකද පිටරට රැකියා යන අවස්ථාවන්හිදී කාර්මික අධ්‍යාපනය ලැබුව අයට විශේෂත්වයක් ලැබෙනවා. අපි එක යුගයකදී තිබුණේ අපේ රටෙන් ගෘහ සේවිකාවන් යවන රටක් විදියට හඳුන්වලා තිබුණා. ඒක ක්‍රමානුකූලව අද නැති වෙලා තියෙනවා. ඒකට හේතුවක් තමයි අද පුහුණු ශ්‍රමිකයන් අපිට යවන්න පුළුවන් වීම නිසා. අද හැම ළමයෙකුටම විශ්වවිද්‍යාලයට යන්න බෑ. ඒකට එහා සමාන අධ්‍යාපනයක් ලබන්න කාර්මික විද්‍යාල මම හිතන්නේ හුඟක් දරුවෝ ඒක යොමු වෙන්න පටන් ගත්තා. අපි කාර්මික විද්‍යාලය වඩා ශක්තිමත් කරලා සමාජයට ඉදිරිපත් කරන්න ඕන. අද හුඟක් වෙලාවට පාසල්වල කාර්මික විද්‍යාලය ගැන දැනුම දෙන්නේ නැහැ. මම කීප වතාවම කියලා දිනවා හැම පාසලකම ඇඩ්වාන්ස් ලෙවල් ඉවර වෙනකොට මේ දරුවන්ට කාර්මික විද්‍යාලය පිළිබඳ අවබෝධයක් ලබා දෙන්න. එතකොට තමයි ඒ ළමයි කාර්මික විද්‍යාලයේ කෙරෙහි අවධානය යොමු වෙන්නේ.
In the meantime, the Prime Minister also declared open a seafood export factory in Arachikatuwa yesterday. In another development, the Buddhist Rights Commission handed over its report to Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa this morning.
Now, the new UK virus strain is found in Sri Lanka. Details after this break. Welcome back. The director of the Department of Immunology and Molecular Medicine at the University of Jayawardhanapura, Dr. Chandima Jeevandara, confirmed that the UK virus strain has been detected in Sri Lanka. He stated that this may be the reason for a high daily number of cases that have been detected in the past 3 weeks throughout the country, as the strain is known to have a higher transmissibility than the current strain.
The COVID-19 variant belonging to the B117 lineage, which is widely spreading in the United Kingdom, was confirmed to have been detected within Sri Lanka by the Department of Immunology and Molecular Medicine at the University of Jayawardhanapura.
Our lab, Allergy, Immunology and Cell Biology Unit of University of Jayawardhanapura, has been carrying out sequencing for the past 1 year since last March. And for this month, we have carried out sequencing for the month of January, and we have sequenced 92 viruses, and we have found that majority of them belongs to the Sri Lankan lineage, which is called B1411. That is a Sri Lankan lineage. In the world, when you sequence virus, they will be categorized into different lineage, and Sri Lanka has its own characteristic lineage called B1411, and majority of the sequence virus we have found out this time also belongs to the same lineage. However, apart from that, we have found that this variant, which is circulating rapidly in UK, also detected in certain samples which are referred from probably the first line contacts, and they also carry the UK variant, which is alarming, and we need to be very careful because the new variant has a very high degree of transmissibility compared to the other variants. So that's why world over there is a discussion about how to control the disease, especially this variant. This new variant we have found them in Colombo, Avisaville, Biagama and Vavuniya, and also few from foreign returnees. So basically majority of the new variant found in Sri Lanka are from the first line contacts, not from the foreign returnees. So that is a important finding, because which means currently we observe there is a rapid spread within Sri Lanka, and you have observed the positivity percentage is increasing over the past 2 weeks. So this could be one of the reasons, which we don't know exactly, but it could be one of the reasons.
However, Dr. Jeevandara also stated that the efficacy of the Oxford-AstraZeneca vaccine against this UK strain can only be clearly identified at least in another 1.5 months.
Now, the Secretary to the State Ministry of COVID Disease Control, Dr. Amal Harsha De Silva, says that the country has no shortage of both state and private hospital beds to cope with any increase in virus cases. Dr. Amal Harsha De Silva also stated that Sri Lanka will be declared a global safe destination soon once the government's inoculating program covers the country's entire population.
During the 9th and the 10th of February, Sri Lanka reported single-day COVID-19 infections above the 900 mark of 976 and 963 respectively. Similarly, the total number of daily COVID-19 infections detected yesterday stood at 942. The district-wise figure includes 273 infections from Colombo, 181 from Gampa, 102 from Kandy, 84 from Mathura, 80 from Kaluthara, 79 from Kurunegala and 23 from Galle. Further 19 infections each were reported from Ratnapura and Matale, 15 infections each from Ampara and Trincomalee, and 8 infections from Badulla. The remaining 41 infections were reported from 12 other districts. In the meantime, Chief of the National Operations Centre for the Prevention of COVID-19, Army Commander General Shavindra Silva, confirmed that 936 infections have been reported from the island so far during the day. In another development, Secretary to the State Ministry of COVID Disease Control, Dr. Amal Harsha De Silva, says that both private and public sector health services in the country possess the necessary facilities to treat the increasing number of COVID-19 patients.
Now there must be some certain elements creating uncertainty, stating that large numbers of patients are coming, about 800 sometimes, 900 sometimes, and then the health services will not have the capacity to handle. But I must emphasize that we in the health ministry, under the government healthcare alone, we have 86,000 hospital beds. And then also about 1,060 hospitals spanning throughout the country. This is in spite of the private sector also. Private sector also has about 8,000 beds in the country. Therefore, I think shortage of beds is not an issue. And then also the ICU beds. We have prepared ourselves fairly well, and we have brought in the ICU beds, we have brought in the ventilators, and we have brought in the oxygen saturation machines. And therefore, we are fairly okay as far as the ICU beds are concerned. But still, we are in a drive to improve the numbers even today. Because, in case that we need more beds, we are even preparing for that.
Meanwhile, 4 COVID-19 related deaths were confirmed yesterday. 3 of the deceased were residents of the Colombo district, while the remaining deceased was a resident of Kandy. In the meantime, the total number of vaccinations since the 29th of January has increased to 178,087, with 1,362 receiving the jab yesterday alone.
There are a lot of requests coming to us from the medical and nursing students to get the vaccination. We are also considering the university medical services, who are also the doctors and nurses and the other staff who are coming into contact with public and the patients a lot. Then there is also request from the airports to protect the frontline officers with this vaccine. We are also positively considering that too. The future, what we are planning to do is to bring down 18 million of vaccines. The first tranche will most probably reach us by next month. As soon as that vaccine comes, what we are trying to do is to get the priority of the people and then get them protected from COVID. And what we would love to see is that to make total Sri Lankan population covered with the vaccine and to declare that Sri Lanka is one of the safest places to visit. Tourism can start, the factories can start, and the life can come into a near normal.
With that, the total number of COVID-19 recoveries in Sri Lanka increased to 66,984 today after 773 COVID-19 patients were discharged from hospitals. With that, the total number of active cases now stand at 6,689.
During the COPE Committee's questioning of Sri Lanka cricket representatives today, it was revealed that a sum of 29 million rupees as dues from the 2018 South African tour of Sri Lanka was deposited in a US bank account. The committee, however, had to postpone its sessions today as the cricket administration body's representatives were found to be inadequately prepared to answer questions about its audits.
2018 වර්ෂයේ දකුණු අප්‍රිකා ශ්‍රී ලංකා ක්‍රිකට් සංචාලයකට අදාළව අනුග්‍රාහක අයිතිය වෙනුවෙන් ලැබිය යුතු ආදායම මිලියන 29ක මුදල ඒ සමාලෝචිත වර්ෂයේ ආදායමට එකතු කරලා තිබුණාට ඒ ආදායම ලැබිලා නැහැ.
සවුත් ඇෆ්‍රිකා ටීම් එක මෙහාට එනකොට ඒගොල්ලන් ටීවී රයිට්ස් වලට එන්න තියෙන ගාන ඒගොල්ලන් එවල තියෙනවා එවල තියෙන්නේ අපේ account එකට නෙමෙයි සභාපතිතුමා.
කාගේ account එකට?
ඒක තමයි ඉන්වෙස්ටිගේට් කරගෙන යනවා. හොයාගෙන තියෙනවා මේ සල්ලි තියෙනවා බැංකුවේ එක බැංකුවක account එක තාම තියෙනවා කියලා.
පටන් ගන්න දවස් 30කට කලින් ටූර් එකට අදාළ මීඩියා රයිට්ස් මුදලෙන් 150ක් අපිට ගෙවන්න ඕනේ. ඊට පස්සේ ටූර්නමන්ට් ඒ ටූර් එක පටන් ගන්න දවස් 7කට කලින් තව 135ක් ගෙවන්න ඕනේ. ටූර් එක ඉවර වෙන්න දවස් 7කට කලින් තව ඉතුරු 115 ගෙවන්න ඕනේ. දැන් මේ සවුත් ඇෆ්‍රිකා ටූර් එක 2018 මේ 115 තමයි මේ ප්‍රශ්නගත වෙන්නේ. එතන 1,87,084ක US ඩොලර්ස් මුදලක්. ඒක සර් දැන් සාමාන්‍ය මේ ඇග්‍රීමන්ට් එක
ශ්‍රී ලංකන් මුදල් වලින් කියන්නකො
මිලියන් 29
එහෙම කියනවා හරි.
දැන් මෙතනදී අපිට විමර්ශනයේදී අනාවරණය වෙලා තියෙන්නේ මේ account number එකකට වෙනත් account එකක් දාලා තමයි දාලා තියෙන්නේ.
ඒක ඔයාලට idea තියෙනවද කොහේ account එකද කාගේ account එකද තියෙන්නේ?
ඇමරිකාවේ account එකක් සර්. account holder එකේ නම තියෙන්නේ Diamond Channel Irvin කියලා. ඒකේ account number එකක් තියෙනවා.
මාසයක් ඇතුළත මේ පිළිබඳව වර්තමාන තත්ත්වය හොඳින් වර්ධනය කරලා පූර්ණ වාර්තාවක්
කරනවා. චන්දික හතුරුසිංහගේ කොන්ත්‍රාත්තුව කොපමණ කාලයකටද දීලා තිබුණේ?
අවුරුදු 3කට.
ඒ කොන්ත්‍රාත්තුව නැවැත්තුවේ අවුරුදු කීයකින් පසුවද?
අවුරුදු 1මාසක්.
ඒ නිසා එතුමා දැන් ඔබට විරුද්ධව යම් නඩුවක් පවරලා තියෙනවද?
එයාට මෙච්චර ගාණක් වන්දි ඉල්ලලා කියලා දැන් නඩුවක් දාලා තියෙනවා.
ඒ ගාණ කීයද?
මිලියන් ඩොලර් 5ක් ඉල්ලලා දාලා තියෙනවා අපේ.
එයාව කොන්ට්‍රැක්ටෙන් අයින් කරන්න තීරණය මොකද්ද?
අපි එයාගෙන් බලාපොරොත්තු වෙච්ච ප්‍රතිඵල ආපු නැති නිසා.
ඉතින් එහෙම අයින් කරන්න පුළුවන් පදනමකින් ඇයි කොන්ට්‍රැක්ට් එක එහෙනම් ගහගන්නේ නැත්ද? දැන් ඒ ආයතන නැද්ද? ඒ කොන්ට්‍රැක්ට් එක ඔය ලීගල් ඔෆිසර් නේ ඩ්‍රාෆ්ට් කරන්න නැත්තේ?
නෑ මේක
ඒ නෑ කියන්නේ.
ඒක වෙනම නීති උපදේශකයෙක් කරා සර්විසස් අරගෙන තමයි සර් කරලා තිබ්බේ.
ඒතොර ඒ නඩුව වෙනුවෙන් අපි කොච්චර වියදම් කරනවද?
අපිට මිලියන් 20ක් විතර ගිහිලා තියෙනවා.
තුමා මේ මුදල අතරින් මිලියන 7.5ක්ම ආබිට්‍රේෂන් එකේ කොස්ට් එක අපේ.
ඒක කාලෙට ඉන්න ප්‍රධානින්ට ඕන වෙන විදිහට තීන්දුව తీරන ගන්නවා මිසක මේකේ ෆෝමැට් එකක් නැහැ කියන එක තමයි පේන්නේ. අවසාන විග්‍රහයේ රටට ක්‍රිකටුත් නැති වෙලා තියෙන්නේ ඇත්තටම. ඒ නිසා මේ ආයතනෙට මේ රටේ ක්‍රිකට් වලට වෙන දේ පැහැදිලි.
ක්‍රිකට් මෙහෙම තියෙනවා ඇති.
අපි තව මාසයක් ඇතුළත නැවත කැඳවනවා.
The central bank governor responds to negative press. Details after this break. Taking you to business news now, Governor of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, Professor W.D. Lakshman, today responded to what he termed negative press reports on the country's economy, revealing expectations of a 5.5 to 6% growth this year due to a host of timely government measures. Professor Lakshman revealed that a combination of factors including vaccine optimism, policy directions and decisions such as import restrictions and positive interest rates have given key sectors enough relief to surge ahead this year.
We are all aware of the first and the second waves of COVID-19, and as a result, in 2020, we might end up with an overall negative growth of about 3.9%. As you all know, in the second quarter, there was a very large decline in the economy. That is why the entire year goes into a smaller but negative. But we expect, as a result of the policies that are being adopted, 2021 will end up with 5.5 to 6% growth. Positive thinking is due to a number of reasons. Unlike in the first wave of COVID-19, in the second wave appears to be the decision of health authorities and the government to go for only limited closures of the economy. Then there is the vaccination process which has started giving, and there are other various stimulus measures that have been introduced by the government, some of them with the assistance of the central bank. The important sector, which was the tourism sector, is picking up. Various incentives have been provided. Still, the important sector, IT-related activities, they are likely to generate quite a lot of foreign exchange in the time to come. There is also the expected global recovery. The IMF predicting something like 5.5% of global growth. And on top of all this, for Sri Lanka, there is also the so-called base effect. We are starting off from a negative growth process in the previous year. So that low base will give us the benefit of achieving higher positive rate by the end of this year. Then, in terms of the policy as well as in terms of numbers available to us, there are very clear signs of the domestic industrial investment picking up, low tax base, a low interest rate environment, etc. And also forward-looking business confidence indices, purchasing managers indices. These are indicative of the pickup in the domestic environment and investment. And also, it is very important to note the government's interest and government's determination to move away from the so far existing heavy dependence on imports. This is indeed a really significant long-term policy approach, in spite of the fact that in the short run, there could be some adverse impacts in terms of prices and all. The interest rate story is extremely significant for promoting economic growth in the country. The prime rate last week was at 5.59%. In any case, almost all interest rates are at single-digit level. There is still excess liquidity in the market, estimated at more than 100 billion rupees, which will be a positive factor in our attempt to promote lending to private sector parties, particularly business lending by the banks.
In an interesting turn of events today, the stock market recovered by 387 points or 5.10%, recording its highest ever intraday gains. The all-share price index gained 387.19, while the S&P SL20 index of more liquid stocks gained 4.64% or 140.96 points, as market turnover was recorded at 5.1 billion rupees. Meanwhile, the Sri Lankan rupee closed weaker around 194.50 to 195.50 against the US dollar. Let's take a look at how markets performed today.
After a significant decline that we saw in the number of days yesterday, day before and the previous days, today we saw a reversal in the index. The ASPI saw a complete reversal and we saw a 387 point gain as the ASPI reached 7,985 points, closing in on the 8,000 mark. So today's intraday gain in points is the largest number of points gain that we've seen in the ASPI history. So with that, we saw strong buying interest mainly emerging from the banking sector, tile sector. Overall, top turnover levels were also, so with the market turning around, overall we saw a positive sentiment emerging, and with it across the board we saw price gain in most of the counters.
And we briefly take you to international news. France's health minister said today that the British variant of the COVID-19 virus now accounts for a quarter of all new infections in the country. He added that the results of a study of 17,000 positive COVID-19 tests nationwide showed that the South African and Brazilian variants now account for 4% to 5% of all new cases. He further stated that in coming weeks, the government would see whether it needs to take more restrictive measures in order to control the coronavirus. He added that the spread of these two variants on French territory is not unavoidable, but may need more strict control measures. And that wraps up tonight's edition of First at 9. Thank you for watching. Good night.